Northern Ireland is a society that has experienced violent conflict for more than 40 years. Recent estimates suggest that 500,000 people in Northern Ireland, nearly a third of the population, have been directly affected by loss of a loved one, physical injury or trauma during the Troubles. The Atlantic Philanthropies has been grant-making in Northern Ireland since 1991, and virtually all of its work here can be traced back to founding chairman Chuck Feeney's desire to help build a sustainable peace and to reconcile deeply divided communities in his ancestral home.
Well, I think the terminal event was certainly the bombing in Enniskillen. It just seemed so gross and struck me that, this is not a good Irish thing. I mean, we're not that kind of people. At that time, I sort of felt that the business of bringing a solution to the problem was as good a business as you could get into.
In 1995, after most paramilitary organisations had made initial ceasefire declarations, Atlantic opened an office in Belfast. Atlantic's first grants enabled local leaders to explore possibilities for reconciliation.
When you look at peace processes across everywhere in the globe, you really need to engage with communities and individuals that have been part of it, have been part of a struggle, part of a conflict, and it was engaging those people because we knew they wanted things to change.
With the signing of the historic Good Friday Agreement on April 10, 1998, it seemed that peace might really be possible for Northern Ireland. However, it was also clear that the task of cementing this peace would be staggering in scale and complexity. By the mid-1990s, the conflict had claimed over 3,500 lives, and communities remained deeply segregated in every aspect of daily life. One early area that Atlantic focused on was supporting communities to bring a halt to paramilitary punishment beatings and help advance non-violent alternatives for anti-community behaviour.
It was shortly after 5 o'clock this morning when a masked gang burst into the house. They were armed with the gun and with a baseball bat and shot the 15-year-old boy in both legs.
Atlantic support enabled NI Alternatives to develop their restorative justice model, the primary objective of which is to heal the relationship between the offender, the victim, and the wider community.
In terms of the victim, which I think is central to this, oftentimes we will involve young people in a mediation process, a face-to-face discussion with their victim, where they'll come up with a restorative plan which will help them make things as right as possible with their victim.
One vital step towards proper funding for NI Alternatives was their official government accreditation, awarded at Stormont in 2007.
We're now in meetings with the Minister for Justice. We're changing government policy and we're used to consult on policy around young people and adults and restorative practices. Huge difference.
In addition to peace building and reconciliation, Atlantic focused its efforts on strengthening third-level education, partnering with the Northern Ireland Government on the Support Programme for University Research, known as SPUR. SPUR supported proposals that improved the competitiveness and capacity for groundbreaking research at the Queen's University of Belfast and the University of Ulster. But as Northern Ireland's universities were moving forward, secondary and primary level education remained deeply divided. Typically, schools are almost entirely comprised of students, teachers and staff from one religious background.
People generally, operate in parallel universes. They go to different schools, they socialise in different places, they go to different places of worship, and the paths that don't generally meet. And if they do meet, they don't know one another.
The more we can bring young people together, the better. Then I think they'll understand, these guys aren't any different from ourselves. And it's only when we do get that interaction that we're going to get people stopping thinking that they're different, they live elsewhere, and they are our enemies.
Shared Education was an initiative which involved schools from different religious communities sharing classes, facilities and expertise. Atlantic worked closely with a number of organisations, including the Fermanagh Trust, to provide grant aid to schools in their area.
What Shared Education has done is it's brought schools, school communities together, kids together, educators together, principals together, and the governance of the schools together, and relationships are built. Friendships are entered into, And so people get to know one another and start to share things not only during the school day but outside the school day, so it's transformative.
Ultimately, it's good for peace, it's good for breaking down barriers, it's good for tackling sectarianism, racism, and broadening people's minds.
It's been fun because it's children that you would never have met before, and they're from different religions and that, so you have to learn and gain respect for that.
Atlantic's work cementing the peace and breaking down barriers was not confined to schools, but sought to engage with children and their parents at the earliest opportunity. Research showed that young children in Northern Ireland were developing negative and sectarian attitudes to others. In response, Atlantic supported the Early Years initiative, Respecting Differences.
We developed a set of persona puppets representing different cultural traditions and experiences of children in Northern Ireland.
I'm Jim, and Johnny is my friend.
I'm Kathleen. I'm a traveller. I'm Kim, the new girl in the street.
All of us are different. That's what makes us you and me.
Those personas are very important for young children in terms of helping them understand their own culture and other cultures.
I think I'm going to like it here. I'm not worried anymore.
It's vitally important that the hopes and aspirations and the mechanisms that were included in the peace agreement, that those actually deliver for marginalised and disadvantaged communities who bore the brunt of the conflict.
These marginalised communities were the focus of the Participation and Practice of Rights project, which was set up by the late Inez McCormick. It works with local communities, developing their skills in tackling the issues that are important to them. PPR supported campaigns on a wide range of issues in disadvantaged communities, such as the right to adequate housing, the right to work, and lobbying to change mental health services.
Our methodology has been recognised by the UN as best practice. So in 8 short years, Atlantic support has enabled us to go from an idea to a working reality that is starting to break new ground in terms of what human rights are understood as and what they're understood as being for, which is about making real change in people's lives.
Further investments by Atlantic supported the infrastructure needed to ensure that people in disadvantaged communities received the opportunities and services required to live healthier and fuller lives. Some of the most effective work that Atlantic has supported will be enshrined in policy through joint government agreements on dementia care, one of the major challenges facing society.
I think the interesting thing about a lot of that early investment was that it was trying to move dementia away from this is a time bomb, this is a problem, this is something really negative. Of course it's challenging, but people with dementia have rights, they have entitlements, they're individuals, they're not there to be patronised, welfareised, looked after. And I think shifting the discourse around some of those things was some of the early wins.
Atlantic supported the establishment of Age Sector Platform to give older people a stronger voice on the issues that concern them most.
What Atlantic's money has enabled to happen is to support older people to come together, to be better organised, to make sure their voice is heard more clearly by the decision makers in government.
The success of earlier campaigns led to the establishment of the Pensioners' Parliament in 2011. The Parliament meets to discuss health and social care issues, community safety and age discrimination, and debates policies with government and lawmakers to help define older people's campaign issues for the year ahead.
We see a room full of older people who have a voice, want their voice heard, and are not shy to let their voice be heard.
As Atlantic neared the end of its grant-making programmes, the focus moved towards building a more lasting impact of the work of its grantees. This was achieved through partnerships with government.
Atlantic Philanthropy have always looked more at what are the outcomes. And I think that helps focus government as well, because you are looking at the long-term benefits rather than something that is going to be good just in the short term.
Inequality, injustice and inhumanity make us angry. Atlantic Philanthropies have allowed us to be constructively angry, to find solutions and to make sure that nobody has the excuse that they didn't know what was happening.
All the work that we do is done through other organisations, and if we have any skill or contribution has been around trying to find those people. And here in Northern Ireland we did find them, and we were able to help them do some really good work here.
I think Northern Ireland will be forever grateful to Chuck and all of those on the team who have given us that help, and particularly that help at a time when we needed it most.